You want to wear a mask, don't you, Tim?
Are we live?
You want to wear a mask,
All right, I'm going to officially call our Board of Education meeting to order. And we have students in the building again. Everybody's so excited. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and lead our Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have a moment of silence after that.
Okay. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, our special guest, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us what's been going on.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sammy Tate. I am the chair of the Executive Council for the Student Ambassadors. This is my third year of being a student ambassador. And my future plans include attending the University of Kentucky. And this is actually, I just found this out today. I got accepted into the Lewis Honors College. So I will be attending there on a pre-law track. Thank you. On a pre-law track and with a major in political science. Some things going on, obviously, as we know, we are back in school finally. Feels like it's been forever. For myself as a senior, I am extremely thrilled to be back. I am ready to get these last few months over with of my high school career. I'm sad to see it end, but I know that all good things must come to an end. And also, I know Jordan's going to touch up on it, but our beta recently competed in our state convention, which was completely virtual. The first time that, we've ever been through something like this. And it was a completely different experience, but I believe that everyone just kind of worked together and we brought home quite a few trophies. And we plan to hopefully have a day where we can pass those trophies out to the individuals who qualified us for nationals, which are in Orlando, Florida this year. And then another thing going on April 17th, I believe, we have our Young Leaders Conference, which is going to look a little bit different this year, of course, but we still plan to just kind of invite at least most of the kids to enjoy a day where we teach them how to grow as leaders and as students and just as people within our community. And I'm excited about that, and I'm sure Jordan is too. And like I said, I'm thrilled to be back in person.
It's hard to beat that, I guess. I'm Jordan Browning. My parents are Holly Browning and Joe Browning. I'm a junior at Marion County High School, and this is my second year as a student ambassador. Something that is really exciting, once like Sandy said, is that our Beta Club won a lot of trophies, and I myself was elected the Kentucky State Beta Vice President, so it's really exciting. Thank you. And then, of course, last year we didn't get a season, but softball and baseball seasons are starting, as well as tennis. And my friend Sammy here is playing tennis this year. So just like Sammy, I'm excited to be back in school. I'm excited to hopefully pass out those trophies and go from Beta, and I'm excited to end the school year and go summer and then have my senior year.
Enjoy it.
Well, we want to thank you all so much for being here. We're so excited to have you back and so excited that you guys are back in the building. Absolutely. Just love it. A little bit of normalcy.
Mr. Tate, congratulations on that acceptance to the honors college.
Thank you.
got
Like,
a
I
lot.
just found out like 10 minutes ago, like right before I left work to come here, and I haven't even told my parents yet. So y'all get to know my parents. They are definitely not watching. So they will hear this information whenever I get home.
Well, you got a bright future and you're gonna make us proud.
Thank you. I'll try.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Jordan,
Thanks,
will
guys.
you be running for a national office at the Bay Area Club convention?
Yes, so that's gonna be in like the end of June. So I'll go to Orlando, Florida and be with Sammy and some of my other betas and be able to compete for national office.
So that's an agenda item that we have down to approve how we could safely go.
Yes.
Hopefully, we've got all that worked out, hopefully. So you all have a day off tomorrow.
Yes, we do.
Like a real day off.
Real day off.
Not an MTI day, right?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so our next item on the agenda is communications, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Slosser for our superintendent report.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see those kids. I know they had on a mask, but you could see the smiles under their mask. So first item that I want to talk a little bit about is leadership. I want to give a big shout out to Jennifer Wheeler. She just continues to do great things representing us at the national level with the Zoom on the Hill with Senator Paul and Representative Comer. Dana Thomas, Angie, Sarah, Angie Akers, Sarah Brady, and myself will participate in a Kentucky Women's Educational Leadership on March the 18th and 19th. KASA is very committed to finding women leaders in education. And we also presented to KASA on a roadmap to return to school. So what happens is we have a virtual meeting. So it's actually, COVID has brought about some really good things. You can do that. You can sit at your desk and actually participate with people from around the state, talking about how we have incorporated social emotional learning into our journey. The kids stole my thunder, but I think most people know this. We did have the opportunity to return to in-person instruction on March the 8th. Excited to also announce that our classroom grant applications that are sponsored by our Educational Foundation is now open. And we're also giving a grace period for those folks that maybe did not have an opportunity to implement their grants in that. For this year, obviously, it's just been a little bit of a different year. Like I mentioned, tomorrow is a no school day for our kiddos. It's actually a day off, but for our staff, it's another day to continuously improve through professional development. Courtney Murphy is actually our state assessment data coordinator. And so right now what we're looking at is that we will have state assessment that we're going to do. It's going to be a little bit shorter, but it will happen as before the last 14 days of school. Our ACT has been completed for both our sophomores and our juniors. Excited about that work. The Otis data platform system that I came to you earlier in the fall about how putting all the data in one spot. We've had training with our instructional coaches and also our principals. And it's a wonderful way to just accumulate, disaggregate data, look at different groups, how are boys doing versus girls doing. You can drill down and look at a content strand. You can look at classrooms. You can look at grade levels, and as a district, that's something we can look at is, you know, how are we doing? And what I want to remind everyone about is that it's about ongoing student progress. There's no way that we're going to be able to compare our students this year to students 2 years ago because they've not had the same opportunities or access to that because that's what happened. So what I think it's important to do is to look at student A and say, where were they in the fall? And then where are they going to be in the spring? And have we seen growth? Now, obviously, we're going to identify, let's say they're off grade level or something like that. We're going to do that. But what we always want to see is that continuous growth. We have to remember that this is something that's affected everyone across the United States, across the world. So we're looking at that data. We're going to identify that. Also working on, I don't have this down, but when we talk about ongoing monitoring of student progress, we want to think about after we've identified those students is also what opportunities that we can provide this summer. And I want us to think about that in terms of acceleration. So let's say that we are behind in a certain area, content, grade level strand. How do we accelerate them? Let's don't talk about that in terms of retention, because really what we want to do is accelerate, because remember, every child's been affected by this pandemic. not just a certain group of kids, not just a child maybe that has had, you know, homebound because they've had surgery or something like that that's happened. So excited about that work, and we're going to keep doing that. Once we get to a certain point, we will bring that data to the board and we will look at that so that you all will have an opportunity to see that. With our 6 big dreams, obviously we're still sending those books home, and you can see the number of books that we've had available to our community. 754 are active, and we've graduated 604. Our kindergarten registration is going on Wednesdays, and I want to thank Miss Murphy for helping Miss Willis and also the kindergarten teachers. I know that it was a different kind of day for our principals as well. We did it just a little bit different this year. Our kindergarten teachers actually participated in the pre-screening, and we also went ahead and started that registration process. So maybe you're a first-time parent, this is the first time your child's gone to Marion County Public Schools. We had somebody to sit there with them and walk them through that registration process, because the biggest thing they're going to say is, I don't have an ID. You're right, you don't. But we're going to get you one and walk you through that process. So very pleased with how that's going to go. That will also help us identify what kind of jump start programs that we want to do for our little ones, because you've got to remember they've not been in school. Those preschool kids, some of those families elected to do all distance learning. So maybe they don't even realize, like, how do you go through the lunch line? How do you pick up your tray? You know, walking in a straight line, you know, being quiet as you walk down the hall. So we're going to look into that. And then, of course, you can see your numbers, again, noticing that we always include all of our partners to ensure that our kiddos are kindergarten ready. Now, when you're looking at our 6 big dreams, some of these things could fall under a lot of different things. So you may say, Ms. Slosser, why'd you put that there? But, you know, when we talk about market, connect, and communicate, we really want to think about we want to make sure that our families know that they are important. And so when we talk about that reading celebration, typically, you all know that if you walked over there, you may have had kids over there. I mean, there's a lot of people at Marion County High School, a lot of different events. Well, there's no way that we could safely do that with COVID. You know, we've got balloons and face painting and characters. I think Batman was there one year. Last year, we had zoo animals. We've had petting zoos there. So this year we did that virtually. Our kids had an opportunity to meet some authors. Thanks to Marion County Public Schools and obviously the board support, every child received a free book. Also some digital books available and a lot of guided reading during distance learning. Today, Ms. Murphy and I had the opportunity, along with our migrant staff and our English language learner staff, as well as some staff from Washington County. Just as a reminder, our migrant program not only supports Marion County, but also Washington County. And so we had a monitoring visit from the Department of Education. And I'm just going to say it, as usual, we had a glowing report. We do a wonderful job. And just as a reminder, a lot of times when you hear the word migrant, you may think that this is something that just maybe folks may not speak our language. Migrant means any family that is traveling from state to state or place to place to work. So, you know, it's not always just a child that does not speak our language. Another opportunity that we've provided, though, for those students that maybe speak a different language, and at one point, and this may have increased or decreased, but we had 7 different languages spoke in our district. So how do you translate that, especially if you're a teacher? And so through our migrant program, we've had an opportunity to purchase a program called Language Line Services. And so tomorrow we're going to do some training with that. And we will also have a quick reference badge, and it's actually going to be on this, okay? And so you can see back there, Courtney has that on hers. And so it's going to be something easy to access. It's not going to be one more file, one more piece of paper that you have to pull out. So just think about even registration, how important that is, or a notice that's sent home. So another wonderful opportunity for our kids. We'll be hosting a social emotional learning week the last week in March in all of our schools. And I know one of the things that we always want to do when we talk about market connect and communicate, it also, we need to remember that we need to tie that into our staff as well. We don't want to just connect with our families, but also our staff. And so we've got some really nice activities planned for our adults. And we have exercise classes, painting classes, book clubs. We're going to do a Maroon Heart Award. We're partnering with the Extension Agency to do some cooking classes. I hope you can take it home, not just cook that day. That means that's one less time maybe a staff member has to do supper. And then again, just our mental health agencies. They're not just partnering with us on our kiddos, but also our staff just to talk about stress management. There's just been a little bit of stress this year, just a little bit more than normal. Technology, that remote learning technology from that rural grant that we had talked about, that rural utilities. We're experimenting with that. That's traveling around our district. And I also want the board members to know that when we talk about that 6 big dreams of technology and we say that we're a one-to-one district, that's great. But the question is, how do you maintain that, right? So we are actually putting together an inventory for each school, how many Chromebooks or how many devices, how old they are, and how we're going to keep that up to date, no different than if we were dealing with our transportation system. So, the last thing you want to do is buy 15 buses. Is that correct, Mr. Abel?
That is correct.
All right. So I think Mr. Lyons would agree that we also don't want to go out and buy 3,200 Chromebooks at one time. So we're looking at that inventory so that we can provide a good rotation device. And so next generation Marion County, obviously you saw the next generation Marion County right here with Jordan and Sammy. What a wonderful reminder of why we do what we do. Excited about the Young Leaders Conference. Remember, we do partner with Miss America, so Miss Kentucky will be here. She is we have partnered with them, so they're going to be here, and that's always a pretty cool deal. I'm not sure if she's coming in person or it'll be virtual.
Still working on that. Of course, Miss Kentucky didn't get to happen last year, so we may be seeing Miss Kentucky for the second time if they're still allowing her to serve.
So the kids are pretty impressed when she walks in. Always a beautiful young woman, both inside and out with that crown, and she always gives them some good pointers about just leadership and always doing your best. Want to say congratulations to our West Marion academic team, district champs, third in Governor's Cup overall, quick recall team as well for district and regional, and placed first place there. And a nice part about creating this next generation is giving multiple children an opportunity. A lot of times when folks think about that next generation, they think about Sammy and Jordan, but the whole point of having that Young Leaders Conference is it doesn't start the day they walk in the building over there on the big patio. It starts actually in Marion County the day they're born, but the day they walk in school, right? Every single day we should be talking about leadership, which goes along, even there's a strand on our TERS metrics that we go through. So when we think about things like a virtual science fair, that gives them an opportunity to apply skills and to present, because you can't just stand up here the very first time, talk to a group of board members and strangers. Randy, you're familiar with us, but I'm not sure Sammy and Jordan know who you were. And to even know that there's a camera there and you're speaking and you can see yourself on TV. So a big shout out to Mr. Ham and Mr. Carey. And notice that while they teach at the 8th and 9th grade, they have gone all the way down to that 4th through 9th grade. So that when we say that we are a school system, not a system of schools. So I appreciate that work. Talking about our kids being college and career ready, I know that we've had a lot of restrictions due to COVID, but we made sure that our students in our health science courses had an opportunity to participate in their rotations and do their practice rounds and things, but to also take that exam so that they could be certified as a SRNA or a CNA. I don't want to mess that up, but basically we didn't allow that to be a barrier. Samuel Thompson has been recognized as a National Merit Scholar finalist for 2020-21. Has that ever happened, Mr. Bittyfield?
Not in a long time, I don't think. If ever, we've had national merit semifinalists before. Sammy is in the final group nationally and is in line to win a big scholarship if he wins the whole thing.
And you guys put him up against us in a.
That's because we're training you to be the best school board members.
But you gotta have some competition, you know, to get better.
I tried to unplug his buzzer.
And you all heard from Jordan, it's pretty awesome, again, when our kids have an opportunity to compete at the state level. It's one thing to stand beside your peer, but another thing across the state, and then hopefully at that national level as well. We have several kids who are competing to be a part of the Kentucky Commissioner of Education's Student Advisory. And for the second year in a row, Marion County High School is champions with Gear Up in regards to the number of kids that are filling out that FAFSA form. So again, Gear Up is a wonderful program that is providing additional funds and additional support to our middle school, Night Academy, and Marion County High School. So, you know, if our kiddos are filling out that FAFSA form, obviously we've got a great support staff over there that's encouraging that. And I know the FAFSA form looks a lot different today than it did when I filled it out several years ago. So last but not least, under communication, I know that the board invested some money in a new track and want you to know that we're going to be hosting our first track meet here at Marion County High School. It's been almost 10 years since we've had a track meet. So it's a wonderful opportunity for boys and girls this spring to participate in track. Our meal distribution, we're going to continue that with our distance learners on Wednesday. You can see the number of meals, over 33,000 breakfasts, 39 lunches, over 39,000 lunches, 27,000 snacks. You're going to hear later from the Lebanon Water Works about the continued water project. Obviously, we want to be a good partner with business and industry, especially looking at how we're going to grow this into the county. We continue to work with Lincoln Trail and other superintendents in the Lincoln Trail areas. We are very fortunate that we were partnered with Kroger. We received our first shot February the 3rd and our second vaccine on March the 3rd. And I will say that we had several staff that was very thankful that we had an NTI day on Thursday and Friday, and I was one of them. So it just really, lots of us had some reaction to that, but obviously that means it's working. House Bill 208, you'll see one of the items on the agenda is talking about our re-entry plan that was signed by the governor last week. Basically, just as a summary, what it's saying is that all districts must provide 80% of in-person instruction to at least 40% of our students. That's not an issue here. We went back full time. So that's not an issue, but for some districts, it is. So when we were doing our hybrid model, we would still be covered under this. So in the event something were to happen and we were to have to back off, but I don't see that being as an issue. Another thing that's a part of this is we have had unlimited NTI days after March the 29th. Each district will be limited to 5 NTI days, and that would be for a weather emergency or an illness. It would have to be an emergency like pre-COVID. And families who elect to participate in distance learning must provide a written request, and that is to do that for the remainder of this school year. Believe it or not, we've had 118 days of teaching and learning, and we have 48 days remaining. And the last day of school is May the 26th. Again, we only have 48 days of school that remain in the school year. So that's just kind of unbelievable. Most of the time, this time of the year, people are begging me to have a snow day because January, February, and March seem to be like 3 of the longest months of the year. And this has been one of the, it's been pretty quick this year. So. Any questions, comments?
I think that time is relative for everybody and nobody really knows what day it is anymore. So, you know, it seems just right this time to fly the way that it is. But if you can glean anything from your superintendent's report, it is that things are moving back to normal at light speed almost for Marion County Public Schools. And it's an exciting thing to see all of the things that we have going on. So kudos to you and your team for continuing to manage everything that you have going on and then some.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the attendance and enrollment report. I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Lyons.
All right, on your screen, you can see what our enrollment is as of today. And as far as numbers, it looks like we've got 210 Calvary with 440 at Glasscock, but 491 when you include preschool. 311 at Lebanon Elementary with 335 including preschool numbers. And 387 at West Marion, including 418 with the preschool numbers. Then at Marion Middle, we have present for 536, 527 at Night Academy, 654 students at the high school, and 102 now at the UC Spalding Academy. And the UC Spalding Academy, you might notice, has gone down some because they graduated several back in December. So that enrollment has shrunk a little bit because of that. And then you see the differences. The first row of differences, red showing it where we were down. That would be the same group of kids. We follow them for each year, so you can see how that's declined. And then the bottom one is just the complete difference between this year and last year per grade level. And that gives us total enrollment presently of 3,273 students. As far as attendance goes, these are our numbers. The right-hand column shows our enrollment, basically a copy of the previous spring. And then you have your distance learning numbers. So district-wide, we've got 598 students still showing distance learning. And 2,680 of them are in person now. That gives us about an 82% attendance in-person rate for the district. And then, of course, you can see the breakdown per school on there. High school sets the low end of that average, and looks like Lebanon Elementary sets the high. Does anyone have any questions on this data?
The 598, how are we communicating with those families that they have to submit a written request to continue with distance learning?
I was waiting until we approved the reentry plan tonight, and then we were going to have something that would be common. And what we're going to do is we will do email, text, and we will send home a letter. And the way we have that identified in our Infinite Campus, our student platform, we're able to pull them out and do a group and send that. And then obviously, I mean, you can see while it says 598, I mean, when you break it down by school, then we'll obviously have those conversations as well. And we're hoping that every day more kids come back.
Absolutely.
So.
Great.
And UC Spalding, of course, is always distance learning, and they make up the largest chunk of that,
Yes.
or one of the largest chunks of that. So. All right, no other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Next item is an update on state assessment and accountability by Ms. Murphy.
Like Ms. Foster said, we will be having our K-Prep this spring. We are required to test. However, there's no accountability attached to it this year. We're kind of in the phase seeing where that will be. Meeting, they should have a plan in place of what that will look like next spring moving forward. I think, do you have the document that you can pull up, Kim? This is the email that I have sent out to all of our counselors, principals, and instructional coaches. And then from there, we discussed this in a leadership meeting prior to sending it out to teachers. So just giving them some guidance. We'll still have to follow all the safety guidance protocol, and they have links to that. Assessments will be given online as usual, like we've done in the past. So the kids know the platform, they're very familiar with it. So it's nothing that they've not done before. The biggest concern we have is the state has asked us that we have to have for those distance learners, but now we have, they have to have written requests. If they remain distance, that we have to have adequate contact with them, encouraging them to come in for that state assessment. And in order for us to cover our tracks, I have a Google form or sheet that every school has its own tab, and we're documenting every time we contact that person, whether they say yes, they'll be in, no, they won't be in. And two, with us moving forward with MAT testing and whatnot, those remote learners, some of the biggest concern is the social distancing. But we have smaller areas, smaller groups, like we did ACT. We called it NTI Day. There were small groups for those kiddos. We will do the same for those remote learners moving forward. Another change this year is, obviously it's the last 14 days, and usually we had to test in consecutive days. Now we can use as many days as we want. They don't necessarily have to be consecutive days. And instead of having days of testing, we just have minutes of testing this time. So I think that's a huge relief off of our teachers, and to know that not necessarily accountability is there, but it's a way for us to gauge where our kids are at this current state, because we're a year not being in school. So that would be another point of data we would put into Otis, just moving forward for summer programming as well. What do we need to do this summer to enrich, those kiddos? And what is school going to look like next year? Teachers will have to talk to the next grade level, saying, hey, we just didn't get to this point. We know what to expect with these scores moving forward. So so I think that's a big relief. This document is available to you all if you just want to happen to look at it. But there's a time and item charts, because it's now multiple choice in several areas, and it's 60 minutes versus hours of it. So social studies field test, we will take our instructional coaches asked that we move forward with that. So I actually, right before the board meeting, I submitted our request to be able to do that for grades 5, 8, and 11. But editing and mechanics this year has been postponed. So lots of new things. Teachers now obviously can go in and see their students do a pre-test, just to get them familiar with the site again and what it looks like. And then that'll still kind of gauge them, the content, and where their kids are before actually taking the test. So that's about it in a nutshell right now, until it changes every day. I'm attending the monthly DAC meetings in Region 5. I actually have one next Friday, so I'm sure there'll be another change then. But this has been sent out to our teachers at this point, and so we're allowing some time to prep for that for this last 14 days. So I think it actually fell on May 7th, but we won't start till the 10th because that's a Friday. Any questions?
Our next item is the Marion County High School renovation and addition project update, and I'll turn it over to Randy.
Thank you very much, and good evening. There's a presentation that's attached to the agenda that we'll be walking through. But I'm here to provide an update. Yes, that's it. Thank you very much. On the schematic design process that we're underway with on the high school renovation and addition. We've had a few different meetings, both programming meetings and schematic design review meetings with the principal and other staff members and district personnel. We're not asking for any action at this point, but we will be back at the next board meeting in April to be looking at a schematic design approval. So this is really just an update for your all's information. So if you switch to the second page, just to orient you, this is an aerial and just kind of put in the high school in the context of Glasscock and the board office and the ATC. As I look at this, I'm going to just refer to north being up the page, south being to the bottom of the page, east being to the right toward the Roby Dome from the high school proper, and then west being up the hill toward the ATC. The next is a blow up aerial of the high school, and I just want to point out some things that we are looking at here. Obviously, the roof is a big component of the renovation, and that will be replaced. All the black area that you see, which is on the low slope, besides the Roby Dome, will be replaced. We're looking at improving the front entry, and there's some sketches and a couple of slides that show that. We're looking at an addition on the west side, left-hand side of the page that will house the career and technical education spaces of IT and robotics. And then on the north side, we're looking to improve the bus traffic, improve the pedestrian traffic coming in that entry point and gaining access to the student and the staff parking lot. Make sure we create a safer situation and condition there. And then we're also looking to clean up and make some revisions to that whole service area that's on the north side of the building. Where currently Ag has space and they will continue to have space, but we're looking at doing some modifications there to enhance that whole side of the building. The next is a floor plan of the existing, just to kind of orient everybody where everything is. Just kind of in big color blocks. The green is obviously the gym. The orange is the kitchen and cafeteria. The brown beige in the middle is the library. The pink salmon color down there on the lower side is the current media center. And obviously on the left-hand side, the different blues and light blues and greens are the academic spaces. Basically, Hall 3, I think is what it's called, the northernmost hall, is the kind of technical, has the ag shop on it. The banner is back there. The art classroom is over there. And then the other two corridors are mostly the general standard classrooms. And then the lower, on the west side there on that elevation is actually the family consumer science. If you go to the next page, which is the second floor, again, most of the second floor is academics. We've got standard classrooms, which are in the light blue. And then the purple in the center of that block are the existing science. And then on the right-hand side, there's quite a bit of space that's currently dedicated to ROTC. So as we look at the building, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So my team has been through the building. The engineering team has been through the building and looked at things. So just wanted to kind of touch base on some exterior items. In the upper left, you'll see kind of an aerial shot of the dome and then the academic building. So we're looking at ways to enhance aesthetically the dome to really highlight that as the feature, because it is the feature of the high school. This entry is going to be enhanced and become a really welcoming major entry point into the building. We're currently investigating ways to go about doing that, enhancing the canopy structure and just making that a much more welcoming environment. And you'll see when we get to the floor plans that we're actually proposing to pull the administration area up to that end of the building so that there's better access and better control of that entry point. On the right-hand side is actually the west side of the building. There's some low areas back there that we're looking to enhance the drainage to get that water away from the building. That's also a location where part of the addition is going to be constructed. In the lower right-hand side is the pathway up from the high school to the ATC currently. And we're looking at ways to enhance that so that it's safer and more accessible. And then on the lower left is just that entry point coming into the high school from the front drop-off circle currently. Next, obviously we'll be touching a lot of the go slide one more maybe. I'll go the other way, I'm sorry. Yes, there you go, thank you. So we've got a lot of the common spaces. Basically, we're touching every area in the building in some way. Some areas we're more intensive, some areas we're going to be less intensive. Some areas we're actually moving programs altogether, and some areas they're staying basically where they are, but then we're obviously in those spaces doing work, painting, ceilings, flooring, and HVAC and electrical work. So these are the common spaces. You see the cafeteria. We're looking at ways to enhance that, make it a more inviting space, yet functional space. The photo on the right is a corridor. We're looking at ways to enhance corridors and make those spaces become educational spaces. So they're not just corridors that people circulate through, but they can actually be part of the educational curriculum. And then the lower left is the current media center. And again, we're pulling that into the middle of the building so that it's more of the heart of the building. And we're looking at introducing daylight into that space through top lighting measures. And then of course the kitchen is part of the renovation as well. The next slide, just show the next 4 pictures. There you go. Just to confirm that we are doing a complete HVAC and electrical overhaul. So we're investigating HVAC options. It will be a new system. We're having conversations right now about the most appropriate system, and geothermal is on the table for sure. We are upgrading the electrical service throughout the building, and obviously the plumbing, etc. Next, 4 pictures. So the actual classroom type spaces, and I've just kind of picked some spaces that's the science and the band and a standard classroom. The band is a space that is it's a nice space now, quite honestly. It's a very large space. We're not proposing to do a whole lot to that space except upgrade the finishes and obviously support that through HVAC and electrical upgrades. The science rooms, those are completely being gutted and changed. So the picture on the upper left-hand side, we'll see that when we get to the floor plan about how we're proposing to approach that whole second floor. And the lower left is also a science space. And then the standard classrooms, the existing standard classrooms are all on the small side of classrooms. KDE says that there should be 750 square feet. All the standard classrooms, most all the standard classrooms in the existing high school are 625 square feet. So you'll see when we get to the floor plans where there may have been 5 classrooms in a row, we're actually reconfiguring that so that there's 4 classrooms so that they're more in line with the size that KDE recommends for a high school. But we've still got adequate capacity to serve the student population at the high school. Next slide. It should be some site sketches. Yeah, so I just snipped some sketches that we're looking at with regards to some of the things. So you see on the upper right-hand side, that's the north side of the building where we're looking to enhance the bus circulation traffic as it comes from the Night Academy and drops off, and then in the afternoon when it comes from Glasscock and they park and pick up and then go toward the Night Academy. Enhancing the way the buses work at that location and also enhancing the pedestrian traffic that comes out of that door to the student parking lot and vice versa in the mornings. On the left-hand side, when we get to the site plan, or the floor plan, excuse me, you'll see that we're proposing to pull the art classroom out of the middle of the building where it currently is located. It doesn't have access to natural light, to a corner so that it has access to natural light, and it also has direct access to an outdoor art courtyard that we're proposing to create. And then if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the south side entry. We're looking to change that entry up, create a better situation with drop-off and stacking for pickup in the afternoon, as well as some dedicated parking and visitor parking at the front of the building. That would be an enhancement to what is there currently. If you go to the next, this is a floor plan. Again, this is at a schematic level, but I'm going to kind of walk through some of the big moves that we're looking to do. So you see the gym is the gym. We're looking at providing HVAC for that, but we're not really touching that in a major way. As we get to that central core where the media center, the admin, and the kitchen cafeteria is, obviously we're renovating the kitchen space, we're enhancing the cafeteria space. But one of the big moves that we're doing that I mentioned when we were looking at the site is that we're pulling the administration area down to that exterior wall adjacent to that major entry that's coming into the building so that the administration has better surveillance and control over that entry.
We're also creating a secure vestibule at that location. So you actually, during the mornings when students are coming in, it will be open and obviously somebody will be there monitoring that. But during the day when the building's in lockdown, you would have to be buzzed into that lobby and then buzzed into the administration area before you're released into the rest of the building. As I mentioned, the media center, which is that salmon color on the screen, is pulled into the middle of the building. It's really the heart of the building, and we're looking to get natural light into that space from above. The corridor, we've widened that corridor that goes between what is now the media center and the restroom there, and gets you back into the academic area of the building on the left-hand side of the page. That's going to be a wider corridor. It's going to be very inviting, and it actually terminates in what is going to be a new stair that provides better connectivity between that first and the second floor, besides getting you to the spaces on the first floor. Just walking through this real quick, on the northern corridor, which I think is referred to as hallway 3. Am I right about that? Yeah. So we're pulling family consumer science up there because there's a lot of great synergies that space has with the existing kitchen and cafeteria. It also has better access to the service coming from the rear. The next space is actually the ag area and with classrooms. And then, as I mentioned, the space on the left upper is actually the art classroom, and you'll see that it has a direct door access to that exterior art courtyard that I was showing as part of that site plan. The band room is still white because we're not doing a major reconfiguration of that, but we are addressing finishes. We have a new restroom, which is in the aqua color that's on the screen on that corridor, to provide closer adjacent plumbing fixtures. And then the computer classroom is located in the center there. And then there's a space that's envisioned to be, it's open to the corridor. We're calling it an ELA, extended learning area. It's really envisioned to be kind of a lounge type space where kids can hang out between classes. It could be a breakout space from classes. It can be a spillover space from the cafeteria to really increase the functionality of the cafeteria as well. It's adjacent to that stair that I mentioned that goes up to the upper level. And as we come down into this lower block, the first floor where the second floor is sitting on top of it, the light blue is all the standard classrooms. And again, where you may have seen 5 in the previous, we've now configured that to be 4 classrooms so that they're larger and in line with the KD program. And then if I'm looking at the lower corridor, the darker blue space there adjacent to the stair, adjacent to the admin, is the FMD area. So that's going to have good direct access out that stair to the loop in front of the building. For easy in and out at that location. And then on the left-hand side, west side of this image, you see the addition. So there's if I'm looking at the top of the page, there's a large space that's robotics, and it's intended to be flexible in nature so that programs, as they evolve and change, they can fit within that space. And then the lower side of that is the IT suite, information technology suite. And what this does, that has a corridor then that gets to those spaces, but it also connects corridor 3 back with corridor 2, which is currently not accessible unless you go outside or you come all the way back to the cafeteria and come across the front. So it really creates a nice circulation path around that area of the building. And then if you go to the next slide, this is the second floor. This is where we are reconfiguring not only the classrooms, but the science spaces as well. So we've got the standard classrooms around the perimeter of the building. And again, where you may have seen 5, you now see 4, etc. The purple, as it's showing up on the screen, are the science lecture labs. And those are being completely reconfigured from what they are currently. And we're also creating in that middle space, which is kind of this really wide circulation space, another extended learning area that could be a breakout space. It could be kind of a space to hang out between classes, etc. And in each of those science labs is completely renovated, brand new, all new fixtures, all new fume hood and furniture in there. And that stair that you'll see is right behind kind of the elevator that's in Aqua, but there's an open stair that connects the second floor down to that first floor where we were talking about that major core we're coming in, so that there's a stronger connection between the second floor and the first floor. So there's easier access to go from the second floor to the cafeteria, to the library, etc. And then the last page, and then I'll open up for any questions. I just want to give you all kind of a timeline about where we are in the process. So this is a graph that kind of represents the different phases of the project, starting with programming in the green on the left-hand side, moving through schematics, design development, construction documents. The bright red is the bidding phase, and then the maroon color is actually the construction phase. So we're in the schematic design phase. We're kind of at the kind of 75%-ish schematic design. And as I said, we'll be back before you at your all's next regular meeting presenting schematic designs for your all's review and approval, and then we'll submit that to KDE. You'll notice that we've kind of broken this out. The lower side represents the board's responsibility. So you all approve at each design phase, and then at the top is KDE and design team as far as our responsibilities, because KDE also approves at each design phase. And so that's the update. Are there any questions? Okay.
I think it looks good from what I see. I like a lot of the ideas. Is all of that, I mean, are we looking at being able to do all of that for the kind of the budget we've set forth?
We have the $12 million construction budget, and that's what we're working within, yes. And as we obviously start to finalize these and start to put budget numbers together, that's our goal for sure. There's always a point where you uncover something that you weren't aware of that you've got to account for. But our goal is we're working obviously within that budget that's been set before us.
And then this may be a question for a later date, but it's pretty expansive. You're touching almost the entire building.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be able to do that in the time frame that there's no students in the building, or?
No.
Okay.
We are, you'll see back on that, actually this slide right here, I have a question mark out during construction. I'm saying that we're going to start construction in November of this year. And I have it indicated for 24 months to 2023 with the question, because we're just now starting to have conversations about phasing and sequencing. We've started that conversation, and obviously we're going to have to figure out, as we nail down the scope, we're going to have to figure out the best way to allow a contractor to have access to as much space as possible, yet not impact negatively the learning environment that has to exist during the construction time period. And that's
students over this side of the building, over on this side of the building, shift back.
Yeah, and we've got some flexibility there because we've got some extra space in the building. But we've got to work through that. A big component of that is obviously the mechanical electrical, because we have to maintain heat and cooling. We got to have power in the building. So there's definitely a lot of work that has to happen during the summer months and when the building's occupied. But then we're hoping that we can get certain areas of the building during the school year so that we can work our way through the building and move those students and be able to have that flex space to move those students in and out as areas are being renovated.
And just one other question. You mentioned the roll-down roof is good.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have a idea of how much longer it's, like, what's the life of it and how old is it? Just ballpark?
I'd have to go back and look at my notes about that. I do not have that right off the top of my head.
I do like that so many of the spaces in the high school are being touched. I think that's really a wonderful thing for so many of the students, because you've seen, renovations in other places and you can see where the new building stops and where the old one starts. And so I think that'll be a great thing for not only teachers that teach in the building, the staff that are there, but the students and the community members who can go through that building and see just what we got for the money spent on the high school. As an arts graduate from UK, I appreciate the fact that the art room is getting some attention, and that shift to an outdoor space and natural light is a great benefit. But I think what we're doing with proposing to do with the science labs is also a wonderful idea. That's been a huge concern for the community from the beginning of the high school conversations, in that those science labs are so old, and so the access that's created from that design is a great thing as well. So I look forward to continuing to work on the process.
We do too. It's been great so far. We've had great input. We've had great conversations with all the staff and all the vendors that have been involved. And I really appreciate that comment about kind of touching everything. And as we walk into the building, obviously there's different levels, because the science labs are going to be intensive. But like the band room I mentioned, it's going to be fairly minimal. Some paint finishes, and obviously the HVAC and electrical. But I think it's important as people walk into the building, they understand that this whole building has been renovated, and you can't really tell, where the renovations start and stop, because it's all been touched.
The one thing I appreciate is the connectivity and the flow for the hallways, as far as connecting that third hall. Anybody that was in band knew if you had a class upstairs, it was a long time to get there, as well as the new entryway or the new stairway. That's safety as much as anything. So.
And you mentioned geothermal was definitely on the plate, and then someone else mentioned like the funding that goes along with it. So we talked about in one of our meetings that when we bid this out, we could bid both. And so when the bids come in, that may be like a decision that the board would have to make. Because obviously there's long-term effects with the geothermal. But we can talk about that on down the road. But Randy and his staff, and he has a team, and we meet weekly or every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, yes. We meet, and it's been a joy to get to see, like you all said, everything's going to have an opportunity to be touched, and supervision in that third hallway to the second hallway, it's always fun too. So,
any other questions, comments?
I like the addition of a fourth stairwell too. That's pretty big part of that.
What I like about that stairwell is you more visual in that open area he talked about. Kind of like you see a lot of the other schools, it could be a focal point of that main access that you're looking at too. I think aesthetically and functionally it would be nice with that.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is the public hearing update. Mr. Abel.
As you all know, we were originally scheduled for February 18th, but Mother Nature didn't want to cooperate that day. So we are rescheduled for March 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Marion County High School cafeteria. We've already advertised it in the newspaper, so that's been ongoing up until we will have the public hearing. The meeting, we will follow our COVID guidelines where we do our temperatures, we'll have our social distancing with our seating and those things when people come in. The agenda will primarily be driven by the KDE guidelines and regulations. So those are outlined in pretty much a standard format as far as what that will look like. It will be recorded. I've asked Mr. Lyons to video record as well as the audio recording that is required by KDE. Just keep in mind the purpose of the meeting is it's a hearing and to document testimony. It's not so much a forum with questions and answers and discussions. It's just the opportunity for the public to come in and voice their thoughts, I guess, on this new plan, and even highlights that, I'm can be very neutral as public hearing. My job is basically take it all in and document what is being said. I would like to highlight that if people want to put something in writing, they can submit that. That can be read into record, as well as those who want to show up and speak at the meeting as well. Once the meeting is conducted, then I will conduct a hearing officer report that I will share at the April board meeting. From there, you will vote to either accept the report and to accept the district facilities plan at that time. Once that's approved, we would need to move to get that to KDE. And really our timeline we're looking at for that is it would really have to be done no later than April 16th. And I would like to do it somewhat earlier than that, just to allow us some flexibility in there, and I'll continue working on that. Not only is it the hearing officer's report, but there's several other documents that they have asked for that will have to go along with that, that we've already begun to organize, so we should be able to do that relatively quickly.
And just to clarify, if people choose to submit a letter or an email, they have to do so signing their name to it.
It cannot be anonymous. Yes, ma'am. Good point. It cannot be anonymous. If they want to send an email, either to me or to someone, I would be the one who would just read those and present them into the public record at that time.
Thank you.
Will you be putting this information out there to the public also, so they know they can submit a letter and?
I can, but that's not a problem if you want to do that.
More appropriate, so that they do know.
I know we'll certainly. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And how that letter needs to be with their name signed on it.
We can do that without a problem. So, and I know we had a 2-week requirement on the notice, but I think we've gone above and beyond with that with the amount of time that we were putting that in the paper, just to make sure everybody had that opportunity.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Spalding, next is the finance report.
So we'll be looking at the month of January. Looking there at the property tax, it's still coming in great. We're above where we were this time last year. The motor vehicle tax, again, due to the, like you all spoken about a couple times, March 13th looming quickly, Mr. Truitt. So we're starting to hit that year, and I think what we're going to see forecasting is that that's even going to go up a little more because the revenues in motor vehicle tax last year went down, but this time the rest of this fiscal year because with the clerk's office being closed down. So the utility tax, we're still a little bit short there. Again, we think it possibly COVID related with people not paying their utility taxes on time. I'll bring attention to the interest rate again, and that's just to be expected every month going forward, just with the change of the rate from the bank. Seats not down, we're actually pretty good there, but I think I mentioned last month that we had some Fund 2 come in the month of December, that they paid some seat allocations out in December through some CARES funds, so they had actually going Fund 2, not the general fund, so we're actually above where we were last year on the seat funding. And the other, while it's down 59%, it's only about $14,000, and that's just some timing issues amid property tax over the past year, so that's kind of hit or miss, catch all kind of thing. The other thing on expenditures, you'll notice down through there are no negatives. Our expenditures are down this year, and that's got to do a lot with what we all have faced as a world with COVID and whatnot. With students not being in the building, we're not running transportation on a daily basis, not to the magnitude of normal, and plant operations are down. Also, utilities and whatnot, those kind of consumables are not being for the last 12 months or so. So overall, you look there, the expenses were 9.2 with receipts of 12.9 for this time period, which is about in line, revenue is about in line with overall with last year, while the expenses are down about 1.4 million. Usually about this time of year, we start talking about what we're projecting, what we refer to the come in, where we're going to hit, what's July 1, what's going to be our leftover. So we started on that, and I'll say a couple of things that I will safely think we're going to come in at about 5.9, which is about $500,000 more than where we started the year. Obviously, a lot that's got to do with that. But going forward as well, last year our expenses went down, but this time we sent people home for the rest of the year. Whereas this year, we're coming back into the buildings. So some of those, I think our expenses, we're going to kind of see the next 3 or 4 months or so, we're going to start going back up compared to this time last year. So I do think we're going to forecast somewhere around 5.9. We'll keep on updating that each month where we think it'll come in at.
Any questions?
We had talked about previous meetings about trying to get caught up, and I didn't know if it's possible to February.
Well, I'll give you a good example. You're right. I heard as the month I was out. So next month, meeting is April 1st. That would normally, if we did the current month, it'd be March. I won't have it done. I promise you, not the first day. So I think we need to look at the calendar and see where we are on that. And I can also, when I get that month done, I can go and send that out to you guys electronically before that. That would be a help too. But I just think sometimes there's gonna be some crunch months and there's where the calendar falls with the schedule of the board meeting and getting that month done. I don't think there's enough time to allow, and I don't want to skip a month. But if y'all wanted to, when I get the month done, I can go and electronically send that and still report on how the schedule we're on now. Is that okay?
And maybe next year when we make the schedule.
Correct.
We can get you involved.
Yes, so that's fine. It's been a learning curve for me. It's been, every month's a little more repetitive. So I hope I'm shortening that window as well.
Anything else?
Have we heard, Scott, if anything's been brought up about, any money or funds coming our way with the new stimulus?
My understanding there is, and my understanding our President Biden signed it today. So I think we're gonna get some more detail. And the way it's worked is they funnel through the states, and the states funnel through districts. So I suspect it'll follow that same path, and also the guidelines what they're eligible for. So I suspect we'll get that. We're still working on ESSERS 2. ESSERS 1 came out early last year, and we're still working through that. And ESSERS 2's guidance is coming out. I just got a Q&A kind of more what's allowable and what's not in ESSERS 2. So that's a big plan to what's going forward, and we'll know more. But I do suspect we'll get a large significant amount of money with that. I guess it'd be ESSERS 3. I'm not sure what the part of that is.
And we will be required to submit how we plan to spend our ESSERS 2 to the Department of Education.
Yes.
And they will approve. And there's basically a yes column and a no column in all of our object codes under that project.
And I do think it would be helpful just for our clarification and the public's knowledge if, once decisions are made on how those funds are going to be spent, present that at a meeting so that we know exactly where everything
That
went.
plan's due to KDE by May 15th, and there's some moving parts in there, Ms. Springfield, Ms. Badgett, Ms. Lyons, Ms. Stockwell, so we're trying to get together to get that, and as we know more, what we cannot, what's allowable and not allowable expenses toward that, but we can do that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Anything else?
One other thing real quick I want to mention. Sometime, I know the board meeting is April 1st, sometime the month of April, probably need to schedule a work session and start talking at the budget for next year. That's due in May, so I've already started working on some preliminary stuff, but I'll need some feedback, some guidance on what you all want that more look like concrete wise to be able to prepare for May. So sometime the month of April, mid-April or so, maybe if we can schedule, look at doing a work session.
Thank you for that, Mr. Spalding. Looks like you're up a few more times. So you can go ahead with the discussion of the 2021 SBDM allocation carryover to 21-22.
So typically, the board allocates funds based on current year's student enrollment for each school for some funding, operational funding. The ideal is to spend those funds on those 8 years that they're allocated for that year for students. Of course, with COVID, again, we're in a different situation. Typically, anything over 5%, the board has to, in carryover from year to year, the board approves over 5%. So, speaking with the principals, they're just wanting maybe some feedback from you guys with this year being not in school. They have spent money when they are there, and they're planning to spend some of that down between now and May 26th. But are they need to shoot forward closer to 5%, or are you all okay with them coming in with a larger carryover for next year? Based off of students not being in the facilities over the last, off and on for the last 10 months.
I'm okay with the carryover.
I figured it's likely to be expected.
And I think, like I said, they're okay. I mean, they hope that's the case, that way they can do more with it next year. But they just need to know a plan. We'll cut POs off around middle of April for this fiscal year. That way we receive all those orders in. So they just need some guidance for the next month or so if they need to be spending some funds or if you're all okay. So that's.
I mean, I would be in the camp of, you know, I don't typically like the idea of you have to spend it or you lose it.
Sure.
And unnecessarily buying things that's not needed or can be used properly, so I'm good.
We can share that with them now. Like I said, just be prepared when we do bring those to you toward the end of the fiscal year, that there's sums, probably larger amounts than what we're accustomed to seeing, so.
And those are for board approval when they know what those
Yes,
numbers are now.
yes, and we'll have it available for you.
Anything else? Discussion of SFCC offer of assistance timeline.
So you'll remember a couple years ago, we were kind of sitting in the same situation here, and we ended up doing Marion County Middle School, the 4th life term edition there. So every 2 years, the School Facilities Construction Commission is an offer of assistance to school districts. And it's a bonding potential. And what that does is they give you an allocation of some funds to help pay for a bond over a period of time, usually 20 years. So we have one that's going to expire February the 6th of 2022. Okay, so we got about a little less than 11 months to get this thing settled. If you look at Randy's timeline, we'll be selling those late fall, October-ish, maybe early November. So we would do that as long as we stay on his trajectory of his schedule and we keep it moving forward. In the event for some other reason we get off that schedule, just be thankful for something that, you know, a roof or something. The bond is for, the current offer is about $42,300. And I asked our fiscal agent what that would equate to, bonding potential to the day's interest rates, and it's somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. So with that being said, this bond, it's a very restricted bond. We can't just spend it on certain things that have to be educational purpose. The high school project would definitely qualify for that. So if we stay on this schedule, with Randy's schedule he presented tonight, then we're okay with this. But just be aware that this is a use or lose offer. So if we do nothing with it, you're going to see a net come off of the top of our bonding potential, regardless of this situation. So my encouragement will be let's have a plan in place for this and get something out of it. So that's just more of a notification, a heads up of that's coming down the road in the next 10 to 11 months.
And you said that's February 2022?
February 6th, 2022. That's
Thank you.
fine.
Any questions about that? You again, Mr. Spalding.
All right,
Water
last
Tower Project
thing.
Partnership.
So Ms. Schlosser alluded to this in her superintendent's report and working with the Leaden Water Works and Darren Thompson and Jamie Garrett there. So their proposed is the build, they're looking for a high point, and this in the counties, apparently, Joe, you may remember, with a lot of avenues, kind of the dividing point, apparently from the east and the west for the waterworks and how they divide their areas. They're looking to increase flow as well as volume on this eastern side of their dividing. They're, at all costs, they will construct, once they receive some funds and some grants, they need an easement. Well, KDE has some requirements for boards of education to grant easements. So this right here, you'll see the green border there is about 0.6 acres approximately. The three things KDE is going to require, and with your all's blessing, Leaden Water Works, they will go on and pay for all this up front, and we'll be ready for them if they receive a grant or something to go ahead. So there has to be a contract written up. It has to include that if this ever goes away, that there's a reversal, it comes back to Marion County Board of Education. Our board of attorney has to approve that contract and review it, and you guys will have to approve it. There is a requirement for an actual survey to be done to actually pinpoint the exact acreage. And then I'm not sure why we're not selling at this time, there also has to be an appraisal done to this to put a value on it. And then once y'all approve all that, it goes to the Department of Education for approval. So just want to make sure y'all are all aware of where we're at on this. And what we want to do is be able, if they call and say, we got a grant, we've got some funds, we're ready to move with this, our end's taken care of, and we're not going to hold up to get this project done.
Questions?
Yeah, typically water companies like to purchase the property and put their tanks on it. So what's the benefit of just creating an easement as opposed to selling the property?
Well, it gets into selling it. There's not really a good access point in front of our property.
Right.
And then also it's going to increase our volume and our flow here on this district, so we're gonna benefit from that. And then the marketing, if you see what the water towers we have, the paint up scheme thing, we can put whatever we want to the school district on that as well. It's a discretion of the board.
And I'm gonna make an assumption that they're liable for carrying the insurance and all that, or is that something that?
Well, that's part of the contract, yes. It's being developed.
Where, is there a certain distance it's gotta stay off the buildings and all that?
Yes, exactly right. And the cool thing too, which this project should mention, is they're gonna work with once it takes off and gets into the design stage, they're gonna work with our engineering program students at the Project Leadway that's housed at the tech center to help them incorporate into their construction.
So will they have a contract with us in order to keep it painted or?
Yes, so all those provisions will be in place, it's at their cost.
Next question is, if it is ever removed,
There's a
will be in the
reversal
contract.
clause.
Okay.
Yes, it comes, all the easement goes away and the property will always be ours, they just lose the easement, and it's all like American Book School.
And then they'll take whatever
Yes.
away. Destruction, whatever you call it.
Yes.
So the easement will be, I saw another picture, I guess, there'll be another new water line easement, but there will be an ingress egress easement.
Yes, correct. They'll have access to it. And then actually, their water line existing runs kind of across the soccer, practice football field. So they'll actually underground tie that in. But other than that, this will only be the above ground that you see.
Another question. If they sell their water rights to some other company, how will that affect it too? Will they
Well, we can ask that.
continue?
I don't know if I know that answer.
I just run into that with some other things.
We can
so-
put that in the contract to address, so I'll add that, put that on our top two list.
What's the projected timeline?
It's depending on their funding. I understand, I think they're replacing the 2 water towers in January Woods as well as this, and that's gonna be first and this will be second.
Thank you, Mr. Foley.
All right.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 4, student learning services. I need a motion for item 4A.
I make a motion to consider approval of 21-22 school calendar attachment number 2.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Good job.
Thank you again, Jim.
Mr. Lyons did, you ran.
Big smile under that mask.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 4B, need a motion?
I move we consider approval of revised 2020-2021 reentry plan.
I'll second.
Any questions? You wanna-
Under student option, under distance learning, we just added a couple of sentences which said to enroll a student in distance learning, a parent must provide a written request, like I spoke about. And then also that parents can revoke the request for distance learning and return to in-person instruction at any time. There will be no specific re-entry dates like we had before, and all of that's based on House Bill 208. We just wanted our plan to match. If it's approved, then we'll begin working with our Director of Communications, Mr. Simpson, on how we best communicate that with our families. Another thing I may bring up since we're talking about this is we will be interviewing staff for those 3 positions that we had talked about for those distance learners at the elementary level. And one of the things that will change for families that elect to do distance learning is the point of contact for their distance learning teacher will move from the teacher they've had to that person that is assigned to those particular students. And again, that'll be a part of the letter that goes home so that they fully understand how that's going to change.
Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor? Aye. Next item 4C, I will make a motion to consider approval of 2 district representatives to serve on the Marion County Education Foundation Board of Directors and nominate myself and Kaylin Reed to serve in those roles.
I second that motion.
So a little bit of explanation. So The board member term on the Marion County Education Board of Directors is 3 years. The bylaws of the Education Foundation state that the appointees from the Board of Education can be Board of Education members, but they are not required to be. And so my thinking is because the Education Foundation is still incredibly young and still kind of getting our footing, I'd like all of the board members of that foundation to continue in the roles that they've been serving in, and for the next 3 years really focus on getting policies and procedures and processes buttoned up really well, so that no matter who serves in those seats for the long term, whether it's a Board of Education member or another appointee, we also have 2 board members that are at large in those seats. One is currently a retired teacher, and that's Jane Spalding now, and then we've got Jim Reed, who serves as the treasurer for the Education Foundation Board. So we put people in those positions with specific areas of expertise so that they can kind of support the operations of the foundation. But we do have an eye on the long term in making sure that the foundation is well established, is well supported, and so that no matter who serves in those roles, the mission and the purpose continues along the way that it was intended to support innovation and creativity in the classroom. So we think we've got a really stellar mission that the community has bought into, that our teaching staff has bought into, that our administrative staff has bought into. And so I think, that's something that can be carried forward long-term. But we do know that we need to make sure that the foundation is strong so that it can last for a long time. So that's kind of the thinking.
How do you go about getting people to apply for this position?
For the position, well, since we are a young organization, we kind of, to Laura and Judge Reed and myself, when we were establishing it, just kind of made a list of here's the type of expertise that we like. We always definitely want a retired teacher to serve on the board because they bring that classroom knowledge that the rest of us that aren't in the classroom don't have. And so we just kind of put together a list of names and went to ask those people to serve. I imagine that as the foundation becomes a more long-standing organization, that we will have people interested in serving. And so they can always reach out to any of the current board members to say, hey, I'd like to be considered to serve in one of these seats in the future. And then that's the 2 at-large seats currently being held by Mrs. Spalding and Mr. Jim Reed are voted on by a majority of the foundation board, whereas the Board of Education nominates 2 people to serve in those seats, and then the superintendent always has a seat on that board as well. So as of right now, there's not an application process. It's just a, hey, I'd love to do this.
Just beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? We're looking for, I think as Laura mentioned, we are giving teachers who won awards in the 2021 school year the opportunity to carry those funds over. And Mr. Spalding, I'll get you a list of the teachers that would like to do that because this year was a weird year. And so I think next year when we make awards for the 21-22, we'll have a huge amount of classrooms that will be benefiting and celebrating and highlighting. And I think it'll be an opportunity for people to continue to do some really stellar things in the school district. So keep on going. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Let's see, item 4D, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to consider approval of a policy number 08.1131, alternative credit options. I'll second.
Mrs. Welch, you want to explain that one?
Yes, what we are proposing is that because we know that distance learning is currently a part of our world, and we are thinking about the future of what our world is going to look like in regards to education, we want our policy to match our practice and think about the future. So our current policy talks about online coursework for students that were in high school. Well, we've had an alternative program actually for grades 6 through 12. We've been operating under that, but our policy's not matched that. This year, it actually expanded from kindergarten through 12th grade. So we've basically taken our policy and cleaned those kinds of things up so that we can offer that for students in grades K through 12. We know that there even could be some instances next year where families are going to come to us and want a virtual distance learning opportunity. And in the event that we do not have that opportunity, they do have the choice to practice with districts that we have a reciprocal agreement with, and they could actually take their enrollment and go to another school district. And we are looking at thinking about, this is what we believe is going to be the future. There is no replacement for in-person instruction. However, different families see education in different ways. I know that this board, maybe not this board currently sitting here, but I have had board members ask before, what about homeschool in Kentucky? Anyone that wants to participate in homeschool may, and there are no requirements. What we always try to do is go through, call our homeschool families at least once a year and talk to them about what we offer. So when you look at that enrollment number, that it continues to go up and it does not decrease. And so the back of the policy, or it's front and back, but it talks about dual credit and online opportunities. That's not going to change because dual credit courses are offered to kids based on if they meet certain criteria or guidelines. So, we could have a student younger than high school take a dual credit course. So that's possible. So we're just planning for the future, and we want to be our principals, and we all talked about it, and we want to be proactive and provide a lot of different learning opportunities. And I do think that all of us agree when you look at that high school plan, and that basically that's a pretty robust career technical ed opportunities at the high school, just like at the ATC. We want to provide a high school where kids want to go to school, but we know that there are instances where we need to have a different opportunity, whether that is just something that's going on in their life, or it's a different career path or a different opportunity.
I think this is a great thing. Due to the fact that you have a lot of people who are homeschooling. I ran into it in my previous job a whole lot.
Yes.
And it opens the door for them to be able to do something. I think it's an awesome opportunity.
I'll thank you to Tim and Mr. Bedingfield and Miss Badgett, Jason Simpson for, looking at it. And we are obviously always working with KSBA as well.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Let's see, I need a motion on item 4E.
I move we consider approval of update for procedure 08.2323 AP.1 student access to electronic media.
I'll second.
That policy currently was listed for grades 4 through 12 because at that point, that's typically when children started getting on the internet and doing their digital driver's license. Well, this year, that all changed. So we actually have kiddos as early as kindergarten and preschool on devices. So we changed that to all students. Or we are proposing that we approve a procedure for all students, please. What do you think, Jim? You've got some little ones at home that are.
God, YouTube better than I do that.
Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Next is item 5A, a discussion of indoor practice facility.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to have a discussion with the board about. It says, it says, and I'd asked for indoor practice facility, but really what I speak of is not only like more of an indoor multi-purpose facility that could be used for practice, but also locker rooms. It's something I think that we desperately need. We have soccer and girls softball and baseball, tennis. None of those sports have locker rooms currently. And like with softball and baseball, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Abel, those kiddos aren't even allowed to bring their like backpacks or things on the school bus, right? So, and they don't have a place to keep them at the field or you know, in close proximity to what they're doing. So they gotta load them up, go back and forth. And of course, as most of us know, you know, we're utilizing the parks indoor practice facility currently, which, you know, presents an issue for transportation for underclassmen trying to get out to the park and back and so forth. And then even this year with the pandemic, we were shut out of the use of that facility for a while. And this is something that, you know, not only those sports, the soccer, softball, baseball can use, but also, you know, golf or anybody, the band, you know, the usefulness of it is unlimited. I think it'll be used very extensively. I don't know that there's anything we could build for the dollar we spend that'll get used more and there'll be more benefit from it than a facility like this. And, you know, almost every school district around us has one. You know, Washington County, Taylor County, Casey County. I mean, just about everybody's already got one that their students can benefit from and have access to. I know that this was brought up, you know, maybe a year or so ago. I don't really remember the timeline. And I know at that time, you know, there was a concern about the DFP. And I think now that we've approved the DFP, we're working through that process. You know, that is a completely separate, not only process, but source of funding. So this would be, whether this was something the board decided to do or not, is not going to impact what happens with the DFP or the speed at which it happens with the DFP. And I would be looking at this, you know, after reviewing the budget and looking like, you know, we're in good shape. We're in good financial position currently. And even without additional support and funding from this COVID relief package, we would be in good condition, good shape to do it. But that's going to make it even easier to do because it's just a one-time, you know, it'd be primarily a one-time expense. And I think we could use general fund money to do it. And, you know, we're in good, if we're ever going to do it, I think now's a time to do it. The needs there, the funding's there, and I think the benefits to our student body with a facility like this are endless. I think that there'd be a major benefit. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention and maybe get any feedback or anybody have any comments or what you're thinking, you know, what you would think about pursuing a facility like that.
As far as what's the dimension of a building are we talking about here? We're talking
I think like a 60 by 100. You know, I think we're looking at a basic, you know, metal sided insulated building with some heat and this indoor outdoor carpet. You know, and then on the ends of the building, you know, of course, we would just stud up some walls to create a locker room separation. We're not looking at plumbing and putting restroom facilities in the building, just a basic shell building that they can go in with some in the winter time or things like that when that's heated, and then provide those locker rooms. We could have like the ATC build lockers for the locker rooms and things. And so it'd be, you know, it's just a basic building similar to, I don't know if you've seen the one at the park, but you know, something similar to that with some locker rooms on the end of it. And then at the baseball field, just some locker rooms there, and they already have a like a batting cage set up with some concrete. So maybe, you know, enclose that, what they currently have, and add a locker room space there.
I think it would need to have that. I'm sorry.
That need to have what?
Bathrooms.
Well, I mean, that would be great. That'd be ideal. It just depends on how much additional cost, I suppose, but, you know, the baseball field already has restrooms, and the soccer field's got restrooms, and the softball field's got restrooms. So that's why I said we wouldn't necessarily need to run plumbing and have restrooms in the facility. But I mean, it'd be better if it did, but it just, you know, I don't know how much additional cost it would be.
in what area would this, I mean, could you envision this going?
I would think between the softball field and the soccer field. You know, there's already a parking lot there. You know, it's a big space that you could put there. That way the soccer field would come off that end of the field. It could be right there at their locker, you know, at their locker room in the facility, and the softball field could come right off, you know, their end and be right there.
I think soccer kids now probably get ready in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, kids are getting ready in the parking lot, and you know, the equipment, you know, I see kids come, you know, they got their bag and their book and their backpack, and they're having to store that somewhere in the school and then load it up, take it home, bring it back every day. You know, they don't have a place they can just put their equipment and leave it during the season.
My kid was doing sports and stuff, and it's not saying I'm not at all, because I am. I think it is a good idea. My next question would go to Scott, though. What type of funding do you think?
Well, it's good, probably more like a general fund expense, what Mr. Cox said. They can use a lot of restricted funds and stuff for those purposes. Definitely not that bond we talk about, it's restricted, so it will be a general fund expense based on KDE's guidelines.
Yeah, and I think some numbers we looked at in the past, you know, maybe 300, something like that, could, somewhere in that range, maybe
a little bit more.
a little bit, 3 or 4.
Just a little.
So, do you think we could get somebody to draw up some sort of plan to see what this would maybe run or something, and then
Absolutely.
maybe present it back to us?
Sure.
Maybe we could also maybe reach out and see if corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
Someone maybe put their name
On that building?
on that building.
Yeah.
The such and such bank training, you know, training facility or something like that.
Yeah.
Would it also be utilized, I guess, as far as even for PE classes or anything like that?
Yeah, we could use it, I mean,
It'd be a multi-purpose.
we could use it, I mean, for whatever, you know, track could use it, or any, you know, if ROTC needed to be inside to do shooting drills with, you know, whatever, rubber, whatever you know, you could use it for many things. It's just be but primarily, you know, soccer and baseball and softball and golf maybe a little bit, but primarily, I would think soccer, you know, because, you know, they can practice soccer indoors, and of course, softball and baseball.
Is it possible maybe for the kids at the area technology to draw something up and use it as a course?
I mean, I think that'd be a great idea, but I don't know as far as KDE guidelines, if they would allow such a thing.
We could pull their, maybe contact them.
They still be preliminary drawings at the end of the day, like the architect's stamp.
Right.
To be honest, KD's gonna require that for life safety and some other purposes for, but they can definitely help design what it could look like, but then they would put the final touches on requirements and whatnot.
I think it's definitely, I mean, it's something to talk about, definitely. I think we should talk about the money, what we can afford to withstand and how we could go about it. So I think it's definitely something to discuss in the future.
Yeah, if we can plan to put some real numbers together so we know exactly what we're talking about, numbers wise. I know that we're projected to be looking okay, general fund wise, but you never know when that's going to change, and we don't know how the legislature is going to set up the formula for funding going forward. So they could decide to, you know, pull the rug out from under us somehow and change things for us. So, you know, again, I think it absolutely would get used. I think it would get used every day and probably be packed
They'd be
and
fighting over it.
fighting over it. Absolutely.
I remember playing over the gym in the winter time.
Yeah.
You had baseball running the bleachers, and you had sports in one side of the gym, and another sport on the other side of the gym, if we can spread that out. And when I lived in Mercer County, we had one of these, and I know one of my wife's coworkers, he was on the baseball team, and like, it was a big thing there.
And then we are gonna present to you how we're gonna use our ESSER funding, and there are ways that we can save the general fund expense, so that would be something that you would wanna consider. Like you said, it all comes down to money, so what could we do to help our general fund budget, to think about long term? And then we'll have a conversation with Randy.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the feedback, and we'll get some numbers together and get it ready to take a look at it next month.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Next item on the agenda is item 5B, and I need a motion for 5B.
I'll make a motion to consider a resolution for junior and senior beta trip, June 2021.
Can you go ahead and?
Yes,
please?
I had the opportunity to sit down with our senior beta sponsor, Jamie Brown, and as you all know, she does a fabulous job with that. She's actually serves on the national panel with senior beta, and her concern was last year beta was canceled. This year they are having a conference, and of course they're going to do that safely. And so I listened, heard what she had to say. I took what she had already decided that she felt like was going to be a safe way to have the trip, and I reached out and I worked with our board attorney. This time Grant Chenoweth helped us with that. She actually had a virtual meeting with parents to talk about what the expectations would be. And so with Mr. Chenoweth's help, there is 8 different basically bullet points that I would be asking the board to approve. It's basically the guidelines. We did not feel like it was a safe environment to put everyone on a charter bus like we normally do, or things like that. So there are families that are willing to provide that travel, and then there are also families willing to provide a spot for maybe a student whose parents aren't attending, because I know we always talk about that in regards to if maybe a child's family cannot attend. And so it would only be 2 families together. The Beta Club will reimburse, they will pay for the registration, reimburse for the lodging, and obviously that's dependent on a little bit of fundraising. So just to go ahead and kind of talk about this too, there would be a release for the student, and the parent would sign that in the event that the child does turn 18 prior to the trip. We would need the child to sign that because of, you know, in the United States, when you turn 18, you're an adult. So even though you may be traveling with mom and dad, that's something that our board attorney suggested. So if you have questions, I hope I can answer those. If not, I will reach out to our board attorney and work on getting those for you all. Mr. Lyons and I have both reviewed this, and we're comfortable with the expectations set in place for the trip. Obviously, that's not something we would bring before you if we did not feel comfortable and that it would follow with the COVID guidelines. And I'm optimistic by June, we're going to have lots more folks vaccinated in our world.
Questions? I know that, this particular concern isn't a new one because it's not COVID related, but typically with field trips like this, we always ask about how students whose families may not necessarily be able to afford a trip like this, if they're still being given the opportunity to go, because, Beta kids work really hard to get this national distinction. So do we have kind of things in place so that those students would still get an opportunity to go?
Right, Miss Brown's wonderful about that. So in other words, if a family is attending, they may allow another child to travel with them. That's something that we do not normally do, but in this instance, we would in a private vehicle. So that child would not, need to worry about the mileage. The lodging is going to be paid for, the registration is going to be paid for, and depending on fundraising, we've had instances where our Beta Club sponsor or our sponsor, even like there's certain meals that are provided. I know that this trip is in Orlando, and Orlando, the word Disney comes up. There is an opportunity for discounted tickets for the children as well. So it just, I'm not sure what the Beta Club conference looks like as far as food is concerned, but really I think it would just be a matter of some spending money for that child, maybe that could not afford all the other parts of the trip.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion for item 5C. I'll make a motion, we consider approval of an acknowledgement release document for national convention participation.
I'll second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion for item 5D.
Go ahead.
Make a motion, to consider approval of the field trips.
Second.
Questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I need a motion for item 5E.
Make a motion to consider approval of 2021 Kentucky Interlocal School Transportation Association resolution.
I'll second.
Mr. Abel, do you want to clarify?
Basically what that is, it allows us to sell our used buses through KISTA with no charge to us. So we're really getting the benefits from it without having to put anything up for that. This year we only have one bus we're looking to surplus due to some grants and some other things we're eligible for that kind of requires the, the structure or we have certain guidelines we have to follow with those buses to be eligible. So it's only one bus, but I think it will be worthwhile.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5F, need a motion.
I make a motion to consider approval to declare bus number 43 surplus property.
I'll second.
I do have a quick question. As far as like, you just recently approved the purchase of 3 buses, and we're obviously surplusing 1. Are we building our inventory, or how is that?
Well, right now, we had a Volkswagen settlement that we were eligible for. Part of that grant is we've got to drill a hole in the core of that bus, so it will be salvaged and go out that way. There's another grant that I've been told we have been awarded already, but I've not gotten official letters to share with you all, that it's another $20,000 jury grant that has guidelines on what has to be done with that bus as well. So while I should be getting rid of 3 buses this year, we're just going about it in a different manner so we can meet the guidelines outlined to be eligible for those monies.
Is this a typical year, 3 in, 3 out? Is that what we're?
Pretty much,
We're shooting for.
some year may only be 2, but Scott may be able to answer that better than I can, but it's generally 2, 3, depending on the year.
Okay.
You want to keep on reporting your site, so depending on the buses you have, if these 2 or 3, right? Majority of years are through, they will all 2 and every each on that site.
Gotcha.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion for item 5G.
I move we consider acceptance of paid contract bids.
I'll second.
I'd like to make a comment on here. I am going to abstain from this due to the fact my husband is involved in it, so.
Thank you, Pam. All right, all in favor? Aye. Need a motion for 5H, with naming the person for the.
Can I make a motion that I be abstaining from this?
You just
one?
need to say you abstain.
Okay.
Is it for H? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to consider approval to award the pay contract to Steve Dales.
I'll second. Any questions, comments?
I know Scott was on there. Does it mean he's still covered Calvary as well, or the Calvary not being in the bid?
Yeah, we did not receive any bids from Calvary, so basically my maintenance guys, the requirements of the bill is that twice a year, so we would make sure that that is maintained, both push off twice a year and show that route.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion on number 5I. I'll make a motion, we consider acceptance of site survey contract bids attached to 4.
Second.
I'll take a comment on this. I talked to Randy a little bit about this. I work for engineering firm, and I will be a no on all these just for the fact that I feel like these are very inflated numbers. Usually, I feel comfortable doing a local surveyor. I know we have one locally, but I don't know how we normally do it. If we just, talking to Randy, he says we try to get people local to bid on this. I don't know what it would do pushing back as far as our schedule or anything, but just personally, knowing the numbers, and this is what I do for a living, I feel like these numbers are very inflated.
So is that like, is it something like that we advertise? Or is there like, how does that work? How do people know that it's available to bid?
We actually procured these numbers from surveyors that we work with and know. And we're more than, and you know, we're procuring them on your all's behalf. So this is a contract directly between the board and the surveyor. So we procured these numbers, or these three bids from SNME, Indus, and CDP, all companies. And you can see the numbers there. And if the board would like to entertain another number or more numbers, by all means, let's do that. I would be concerned about the timing. We're, as presented earlier, we're in the middle of schematic design, and we're going to need a site survey completed pretty quickly in order to move into design development, where we get into the details of the project.
So we have somebody local?
Well, no, I mean, KWM was a local engineering firm. They've got an office a mile down the road here, and they do a lot, but I have never contacted them or talked to them, but I didn't know what the process was, if it's something you put in the paper, if we're too far along in this, that we're kind of held to these. It's just, you know, all these firms out of Lexington.
How much are you?
Well, the company that I asked my engineer, my surveyor, and the site survey for 20 acres would run around $8 grand. Now that's because, of course, we're down here. You've got to imagine that they're using people in Lexington, Louisville, and the underground utility company they're using is out of Ohio. So, you know, it's all about location.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm interested in
using local people if we can. Is there talk to us about timing and what can we do?
Well, we can absolutely send this person and anybody else, quite honestly, if you all have other suggestions. The proposal that we put together, because we did prepare a proposal that highlighted what was required in the survey and the area that needed to be surveyed, we wanted to be surveyed, and send it out. And so we can send that exact same information to the southern firm, KWM, is that right?
Yeah, KWM, or KWM, yeah.
How many are in there county?
They're the biggest. I guess they're the county surveyor over there. They're not, but they do several counties here. And there's surveyors and engineers in Campbellsville, Bardstown. I mean, there's several locals.
So,
Instead of just sending it,
Right.
I think instead of just sending it to one, you would need to send it to more than just one.
Right, absolutely.
In order to be fair.
Absolutely.
So,
What is our typical process for issuing an RFP? I know that
So he's right, Randy's right. So typically, Crosstown handles, our architect firm handles the procurement of this, and they bring them to us. So our next board meeting is 3 weeks from today. How could you get them back that quick? And how bad would that mess with your schedule?
yeah, that was, we have a meeting in 3 weeks, so that.
Well, I have to think about the schedule, but we can totally get these out and get the numbers back. We just have to tell them we need those numbers back in that amount of time. Part of the assessment is that, you know, each surveyor told us when they could start the job, how soon they could finish the job, and that's all critical to the schedule moving forward into the next phase of design. So we'll just want to make sure that we get that information from each of the surveyors to make sure that they have the capacity and can get this on a schedule that's going to work for the project.
it's still plenty of opportunity time to do that right now.
Yes.
As long as we have it before our next meeting.
So need absolutely to be approved.
So Randy, if you think that, what's the, April 1st, is that? So if you think that April 1st is too long, you know, we could, if we needed to, we could do a special call meeting to, I mean, you know, that, I'd be okay with that, but I mean, you know, if April 1st isn't gonna hurt us too bad, then we can do it then, but if we need to do it
I think
sooner.
April 1st will be fine.
Okay.
So do we need to pull this?
Yes, so I'm gonna rescind my motion on item 5I. I wrote withdrawal. And then Brad, I think you gotta withdraw your second, maybe?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the second, or we just, or do we just
Okay.
need to table the next two
Yeah.
items?
And then we are going to just table this one, item 5J as well, with April 1st as our deadline for getting it back on the agenda. I think if we're looking at any longer than that, I'd want to go back to these numbers that we have in front of us.
Is that something that the people are waiting to hear from you as well? If you give them a timeline, these companies?
Not specifically, no. But we obviously they understood that there was a board meeting and that was that decision was going to be made. But we can tell them that just hold.
Yeah, Randy, if you wouldn't mind touching base back with them just to see, like, you know, they may have looked at it and said, we can complete it in 4 weeks if you do it at this time frame, but because we've got 3 or 4 other projects going on and that timeline extends. So if it changes, if this push changes their time frame, then we'd want to know that too.
Good point, thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion on item 5K.
Make a motion to consider approval of the contract for grant writing, consultation services with Development and Growth Strategies LLC.
I'll second.
Mrs. Slaughter, could you talk about this a little bit?
Yes, the last couple of months, and even in my superintendent's report, I talked about the RUS grant, the rural grant that we've been talking about. And what we have found is that this grant writer works closely with this opportunity. And so we feel like that it would be to our benefit to use this grant writer to help us. Because, you know, again, we could be awarded anywhere between $20,000 and,
1 million.
okay, so.
A couple of pluses, if I can interject. First of all, our Director of Communications is very interested and passionate about getting into grant writing for the district, but has never had any formal training. There are a lot of nuances to writing grants in the education world. So this particular group will walk through the steps with our Director of Communications, so it's a learning opportunity for him. So regardless of whether or not we get the grant, the money has been well spent, because if we sought a formal training for him, the price is comparable. This particular grant writer is Kentucky-based, and I think has successfully won 7 grants in a row for folks. So she's the real deal.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Next item is discussion of Marion County ATC local control versus state control.
Yeah, I know, Ms. Slosser, you sent us some numbers on state funding if we decided to go in this direction. And I think before we can make a good, or before I could make a good decision on this, you know, we need to have further discussions with the local industry and see, you know, how interested they are in partnering with us. I think that we should give it considerable consideration because of the benefits, and because I know that, you know, this is pretty close to Senator Higdon's heart, and he was a big part in getting this opportunity before us, and he's been a good partner of the Marion County Public Schools. So I'd like to continue to give it consideration with some deeper discussions with the community and industrial foundation and so forth. And so I mean, I would like to, you know, table the next item so that we can maybe make a vote on it later down the road.
Maybe have some people come talk.
Yeah, I think the unknowns or the uncertainty of it all is what gives me pause to approve anything like this. It's $175,000 a year after that first year, and that would be an ongoing annual general fund expense. And so that's not a small piece. We also don't know whether or not the legislature is going to put this funding in a statute or whether it's going to be a budgetary item that's considered biannually. And so if it's biannual, then there's potential of that 75% that we would get after the first year of going away. And so that is a huge consideration as well, is that if it is not put into a statute, I don't believe that we could, even if we wanted to have local control, take on that much expense to maintain the ATC. So that's a consideration as well. And with those conversations with local business and industry, my understanding right now is that the area technology is incredibly successful from a business and industry perspective with regard to its curriculum, and it's offering a lot of the programs that our business and industry are looking for in employees. It's also a great benefit to students who are gaining that knowledge that we offer at the Area Technology Center. And so I guess if we weren't doing such a great job up there as a district, then that might be more of a push to get us to take over local control so that it could be more flexible. But I think we are meeting those needs, but I think it would be a good idea to have those conversations just to make sure that some flexibility wouldn't be beneficial. But again, for me, it's a lack of information, and unless we know that this is going to be there forever, then it's just a difficult decision to make.
What does Washington kind of think of this, since we share it?
Well, we actually share, it's our facility, they come over, but they also have a ATC-like tail center. And so we actually send some kids to their aviation program and their AP computer science program. So we're sharing some students. We've talked about it just in very general terms. I know that there would have to be a memorandum of agreement between us and how all that would work out. I know that Nelson County did take advantage of this opportunity, and Bardstown actually is a partner with them, similar to like what we do with Washington County. So that could be something else that I bring back to the board as well and have some conversations with business and industry. But you're right, they are still a partner in that with us. And so we have had an opportunity to speak with the Department of Education. They said whatever we want to do, they'll help us, with that process. Just making sure I've not left anything out. Okay. So I've got written down discussion with local business and industry, and also our state budget in regards to if this is something that's going to be written into a statute that's here forever, or if this is something that's just going to be this year and next year. Correct. Absolutely. Okay. And Washington County.
Okay, so if everyone is okay, we will table item 5M. And I need a motion on item 5N.
Make a motion, consider approval of the 2021 revised salary schedule, attachment 5.
I'll second. Did you discuss?
Yes, we are bringing to the board a request made by the Marion County High School Site-Based Council. And what it does is, instead of having 2 assistant soccer coaches, it is actually 3. And if you'll notice on the salary schedule, it is just for this year only and to be paid by Marion County High School. So we're just being transparent. If something goes through salary and payroll, it goes through this office. We're the fiscal agent, and it is to show up on our salary schedule. So just wanted to make everything clear and upfront.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion for item 6.
I move we approve, student learning and support consent items A through E.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, acknowledgement of personnel actions, so acknowledged, and I need a motion for item 8.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.